Frizzell, thanks for actually joining me.
It's a
Yeah,
pleasure.
great to meet you, and it's a cool place you got here. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Oompher is all about inspiring people to achieve extraordinary things. So who and what during your life and career has inspired you?
Who has?
Yeah.
Also, a very obscure American painter called H.C. Westerman, the Auckland mayor and ex-mayor and character Bob Harvey, the New Zealand film director Roger Donaldson, and then they're the direct ones that I've actually, corresponded with, or apart from your Picassos and everything else, which you take lessons from just by studying them, but.
Okay.
Famous examples of behaviour like Andy Warhol and things he used to say, and that, his shallowness was his depth and all that. You know what I mean? I carry all that stuff in my head. But and that American painter who was the grandfather of the New Image movement that we looked to, and then I actually ended up writing to like a fan.
Okay.
And he was only a sort of famous in a kind of culty kind of way, so you could actually get to him. And he when I had a crisis of confidence and kind of like a writer's block thing, crisis, I wrote to him, and he was amazing. He actually wrote me this letter about it's never going to get any better. You just got to sort yourself out. You know what I mean? It was like a real slap in the face actually. Was kind of get over yourself. All those letters. It was awesome.
So kind of like artists from around the world, you've always just drawn inspiration from anywhere, really, or?
Oh yeah. I've always, I've got a whole list of favourites, and they can be people that no one else has ever heard of. Like very private people, and then I've gone and visited their house up in sort of North England and walked around the lawn and soaked it up and. Yeah, a lot of that,
Yeah, and tell us more about your story in particular and how you first got interested in art.
My favourite story. I never sort of got interested. I just was, from the get-go, the kid in the class who could draw, sort of. And I had my favourite story is the teacher asking me to draw Santa Claus on the blackboard at the end of the year.
Okay.
This was in Primate 4 or Standard 3 or something like that, and I remember thinking, why didn't she do it? Because you assume the teacher knows everything. Yeah. And when I'm drawing this image, I had the sleigh and the reindeer, the whole thing, all marching up the blackboard, and I was thinking, oh, this is pretty cool, that I could do something that the teacher couldn't do. Yeah. So I kind of I figured out then that I had this kind of point of difference, and then all the kids in the class would get me to draw Donald Duck on the cover of their school book. So I was already being commissioned. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They weren't paying me any money. It never occurred to me to charge them a penny or something, but I could have, and they would have paid, I'm sure. It was funny. They'd queue up right around the class,
Yeah, they're probably selling you originals now.
Yeah, wouldn't it be funny if they had them?
Yeah. Obviously you went off to the Ilam School of Fine Arts at the University of Canterbury and did some studies there. Is that something you would, did that teach you a lot? And are you happy you did that study?
The interesting thing is, and that I always say, what it taught me more than anything else was, it gave me a very intense arty environment, because in a small town like Hastings, I was the only freak at the high school. You know what I mean? Trying to grow a beard and all that sort of stuff, and I had all around New Zealand and all these small provincial high schools or big colleges or whatever, there are all these standalone freaks, all feeling a bit weird. And then but we all knew what we wanted. We all knew that we wanted to go to art school, and so we all went to art school. And then, because the first day at school, at art school, and you're there and you're nervous as hell because you're not sure whether you're as clever as you think you are or whatever, But you look around the room and you realise that everybody in that room is exactly like you. Yeah. They're all try-hard beatniks. You know what I mean? And it's like, whoa. So you find your tribe, really. Yeah. And that's the education more than anything else. Because immediately you're sharing art stories that you've never been able to articulate to anybody else prior. Yeah. you know, because no one knew.
So meeting cool people.
Yeah, totally.
So for someone wanting to start out who hasn't done any art before, I mean, what do you recommend to them as the first step to take?
Well, if they haven't if they haven't done any art before, they'd really have to wonder whether or not it's kind of right for them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe they're better at the ukulele or something. I don't know.
You
really have to. I mean, I never had to think about it.
Okay.
This is a funny thing.
Yeah.
I went right through school, and then I got to high school, and I was illustrated the school magazine. And I did all the decoration for the school ball. You know, I was the go-to guy for art.
Stuff.
If you wanted, no one called it art. It was just, could you draw this, or you know. We did have an art teacher, but they never seemed to have much of a clue about anything. There were reproductions of Cézanne pinned around the wall, but I mean, they were kind of meaningless. No one ever told you what they meant or anything. You know. No one knew. Those art teachers didn't have a clue. But you did your own kind of private study and weird. There were no magazines, you know, no art magazines, especially not in my house. I can tell you that for nothing. Though my mother was kind of arty, she painted Goldie portraits on wooden plates, and so I used to watch her doing that. You know what I mean? So even though we didn't call it art, it was still the craft of painting and that. You know.
Yeah.
So when I got to high school, I quickly figured out that there was this thing called art, and I definitely wanted to do it. And so going to art school was the obvious thing to do. I could have come to Auckland, but I ended up going to Christchurch for sort of family reasons. And of course, once you got to art school, it was like boom, that was it, you know. But you do, there's no shortcut to poetry. You know what I mean? If you want to get there, if you want to be a painter or you want to be a pianist or whatever, you've got to practice it. You've got to study it. You know, this is a thing a lot of people seem to forget. They think, oh, I'll just get a brush and I'm off I go. You know. And they might get a painting done, but it won't be
any good.
Well, it could be quite crafted quite well, but will it relate in any way to the current conversation that's going on about what art is? Because art is always revealed through the process of trying to find out what it is.
Okay.
You see,
right.
That was the thing, and that was the thing that they never really taught you very well at art school.
Okay.
They just said, here's art, go and make it.
Yeah.
So we assumed that if you're going to do art, it had to look like Picasso, or it had to look like what we called art. And it was quite an interesting process.
Yeah. And what about people who are selling art and doing art and trying to make it a full-time job, but are struggling on the business side of things? What's your advice to them around selling it?
Well, if you get a good dealer, and then of course a lot of people hate that because the dealer takes 40%, and they keep thinking, why should that be? But then the dealer does the business. You can't. I see people, they go and they have these websites, and you can have a life selling your stuff, whether it's kind of art or whether it's even very good, but people like it and buy it. You can go and live somewhere up at Whangaroa, cheap rent, and paint pictures of the beach or whatever, and people and sell them, and you can be independent and doing what you like doing, but you're not necessarily making art. You know, there's a difference. You know, there's a conversation, and then there's just stuff. You know, and I think people miss that. Find it hard to sort of get that.
Yeah. So if you had to summarise kind of like your top bit of advice for artists, what would you say?
Study. You have to study. You have to study it, and you have to figure out what it is, and you have to study through these weird delusions and that people have about it. And there's so many myths surrounding the process. A lot of people think art is a big con, and you know what I mean, and all that stuff, and that the artists are just having us on, but very seldom are they doing that.
Okay.
But sometimes they'll be caught up in a very arcane line of investigation that is doesn't reach out far. You know, and then you get the stories about, oh, they're just pulling my leg and all the rest of it. You know, stuff. You know, sharks in a formaldehyde or whatever, and away they go. But of course, if you study it, and of course, the more you study, the more you learn, the more you understand, and the bigger the picture gets. And you've got to, you know, when I worked in advertising, because I went from art school and then I strayed into advertising to make a living because I had a young family, and then I made my way back into art again through the process I'd learned in advertising, which gave me this point of difference. All of a sudden, a lot of advertising guys, like art directors and that looked at what I'd done and thought, well, that looks like I'll be an artist too. So they would come around and say, oh, what do I do? And I said, well, first of all, you've got to study for about 5 years. And they go, no, I haven't got time for that. And I said, well, don't bother me, get out of here.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you've got to be willing to learn. And,
Yeah, you've got to dig in. It's not unless you want to do it for fun. But then again, you can't. You have to get your level of expectations in order if you're going to do that. You're never going to be representing New Zealand at the Venice Biennale. If you're painting cats in the weekend for fun, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about that process a bit more, how would you describe the process of you coming up with an idea and then starting out? How does it work? You know?
Well, it is a bit of a mystery, but it's all informed by staying in au fait with the conversation that's exists at any point in time, even in these very pluralistic times. There's about 6 sort of conversations sort of running parallel, and if you do your homework, and your personality, which you can't alter, will lead you to this way of thinking. Some people think kind of in minimal sort of abstract, don't want to express themselves through that sort of mode. The genres, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people are drawn to narrative.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people aren't, and everything else. And some people are like naturally interested in colour, and they make their sort of career based around an investigation of the physical properties of colour, you know, and things like. So if you're going to do then, you look at Matisse, and then you know. So that's how it. So you do have to, and you have to kind of understand where you sit. And I talk about this a hell of a lot. If you don't, where you sit in the hierarchy, you know, there's always this thing going on at any point in time. And you have to study through these delusions till you actually have a complete and sort of unbiased understanding of what's going on, and then you can see where you should be positioning yourself.
Right.
It's quite complicated.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So there's different styles, because obviously your work's kind of across.
I've got. I've sort of evolved these 4. It's got roughly 4 different. You know, the graphic comic thing and the landscape and which is, I mean, that was a trick in itself. Getting, because that can be counterproductive, because then you get some people looking at you and thinking, oh, well, I don't trust him because he can't make his mind up.
Yeah.
And yet other people think, well, this is fabulous. He's capable of
doing anything.
You know, so you can't please everyone. Yeah. That's the other thing you've got to figure out. Okay. You know what I mean?
So why did you decide to experiment across different styles?
Well, I used to evolve through them. Like the one thing kind of led to another, and then I don't know, at a certain point in my, so-called career, I started going back. I think someone came once and asked me if I would paint a phantom painting long after I'd kind of dropped that kind of thing, and I thought about it then, and the money was really good, and I thought, well, I wonder why do we think that going back is some sort of a crime, you know? Yeah. This is like an art rule, all these weird art rules that you've got to figure out. Going back, you're not allowed to go back. You're meant to move forward, which was a modernist idea. And so I kind of went back anyway. I thought, what the hell, you know? Gone past caring. And I did that painting, and then there was Carl Moore, the flower painter. He said, why don't we have a show together? And you know those landscapes you used to do? And I thought, oh God. And then I thought, oh, it could be quite fun. And I got an old photo out and painted it up. And I thought, oh, this is pretty good. So then I started. Then I found I could do it without losing any intensity. Yeah, cool. You know, it just depends. You just get yourself in the mode. And
So when you look at some of your really iconic works that have done really well around the country and around the world, such as Mickey the Tiki and so on, I mean, what do you reckon have made them different?
Well, obviously, I do seem to have quite an uncanny knack for grabbing the language, the popular language, and defining it. I mean, obviously I have, because that's where it all sort of comes from. But you can't, how does that happen? I haven't the faintest idea. You just have an ear, you know, or an eye. And I was, and I think like Mickey the Tiki, because of that thing I did about the Tiki and that big argument I got into about cultural exchange and the flow of information should be totally democratic and blah, blah, blah. And that, the Mickey the Tiki image, I didn't I didn't think it was famous when I did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just thought it was a neat idea.
Where did the inspiration come from for it?
Oh, well, I studied as an animator for 3 years. You know, worked at animating TV commercials. So I've got that skill of morphing, animating, and it struck me how much the ticky shape looked like Mickey Mouse, the shape of Mickey Mouse's face inside the black. You know, he's got the black. If you chop off the ears,
right,
it looks like a ticky because of that shape. You know,
the way.
And I thought, oh, that's, you know, and then you go, well, that's interesting. So, what would happen if I did this? You know, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then it's done, and then it goes on and becomes this huge thing. You know, and you go, well, that was funny.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah. And just to talk a wee bit now about change and Kiwis who are potentially doing stuff that they don't want and want, like, sort of need some inspiration to change. Obviously, you're someone who did make change from working in advertising to going out on your own and doing more painting and so on. So, do you see lots of opportunities in New Zealand for people to make change?
Well, the big thing about making change is to not be scared of making change. You know, there are a lot of people that are terrified that they'll... the thing about making change, hopefully you're changing towards something that is more you. You know what I mean? That arbitrary change is something else. I mean, I don't know what that means, but if you are in your life, you think if you're not happy, I mean, you're changing for some reason, right?
Yeah.
Because it's unproductive, or it's not satisfying your creative thing, or philosophically it's not sympathetic. Then you have to think, well, what do I want to do? You know, would I like to be growing horseradish up in Kaitaia or something? You know, but then you think, oh God, that's too scary, and maybe it'll fail, and you know. But some people just think, all right then, bugger it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So when you decided to make change, what was your main driver for
I hardly had to think about it, to be honest. You know, you hopefully you're driven enough. I mean, obviously you do the homework and things, but I did have the responsibility of my family, so I couldn't just be too arbitrary. But, you know, there had to be, I still had to pay the bills. But what I would do was make sure I had, you know, you have to work bloody hard. This is the other thing that people kind of forget. Yeah. Nothing happens without this incredible input, you know, of energy and thought. And I would be designing like one year I was designing all the toy boxes for Lincoln Industries. Okay. Everything, dolls boxes, and you know, and that paid the bills and paid the rent, and then I could afford to experiment a bit more with my painting. Yeah. Because I knew that it wasn't gonna, if it fell flat. But the funny thing is, if the change is totally sort of intrinsic and not arbitrary, and comes from a deeper need, it's amazing how often when you actually come out with this thing, you'll have the whole group of people who are just waiting to see something like that. Okay. You know what I mean?
They're kind of expected of you almost.
Yeah, well, no. If you're the change that you're talking about, or that I'm talking about, is responding to the fact that there's something lacking out there that you want to see, or you want to see happen. If you want to see a hotter pepper sauce on the market, go and make it. Right. Don't wait for someone else to do it. And if you want to see paintings of rubbish tins and no one's doing it, well, go out and do the paintings of the rubbish tins or whatever. Yeah. And then, funnily enough, when you do it, if you're kind of in the zone, suddenly you'll find there's a whole lot, hundreds of people out there who've been just waiting for someone to do a painting of a rubbish tin. Yeah. You know, it's bizarre. It's called the zeitgeist. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you go, oh, this is interesting. I took a big punt, and here I go. The people love it. Woo! Yeah. And the only reason it worked is because you responded. You went inside deep enough and trusted yourself enough to have a go. Yeah. Which a lot of people are really scared of what's in there. You know what I mean? They're scared of being banal. Yeah. They're scared of being seen as frivolous or stupid. It's a big one. People say, well, I won't do that. People might think I'm stupid. But if you get it, if you're stupid enough just to do it, then other people go, wow, that's fantastic. And you go, oh, wow, I can't believe it was that simple. But all I had to do was be myself. Yeah. So for those people who are like wanting to do it, but just like
need some, I guess, inspiration, what's sort of the first step you think people should take?
Homework.
Okay.
Yeah, major homework.
Yeah.
Dig in and research it and read and, go on the internet or whatever. In the old days you'd say go to the library,
Yeah. That's the toolbox, yeah.
I used to say, at art school when I used to go and I was teaching a painting, but I'd go and give the old lecture in the design department, and I used to say, all you need is a tracing pad and a library card, because you get the books out and then you trace the, if somebody asked me to do an illustration for the school journals, it was all about horse riding. Well, you had to go and get a picture of a horse. I can't draw a horse from memory.
Yeah.
So you get the library card, you get the book about the horses, and then just trace them out. I mean, don't even draw them freehand,
Yeah.
Away you go.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so research.
Research, and then just get in there and don't make a mountain out of it.
Yeah.
Just get in there and do it.
Cool.
Trust yourself to. That's the trust. Just don't look at. I mean, obviously look at what everyone else is doing, but then you have to look and go, oh, that's not quite right. That's not quite right.
Yeah.
And the reason it's not quite right is because you're looking for something, which is you.
Yeah.
Which is your.
Yeah, that's what you're going to add to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we've just got a few quick fire questions to finish off. If you were going to summarise your sort of top 3 bits of advice for people wanting to become professional artists, what would you say?
Well, you have to be very persistent.
Yeah.
And you've got to get out there too. You've got to mix it up. You've got to hustle. You do have to hustle. There's no virtue in sitting back waiting to be discovered. It's a very outside of the actual work. It's a very impure industry.
Yeah.
It's totally unregulated. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's totally weird. There's no accounting for any of it.
Yeah.
But you've got to go to all the openings.
Yeah.
Find out where all the galleries are, because you're in the business. This is a business.
Yeah.
This is not some sort of pure and holy operation. I mean, it can produce pure and holy results, but that's not a very pure and holy. And people say, well, it's not a competition. I say, well, if it's not a competition, it's not art, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah.
You're trying to make this better.
Yeah,
put
exactly.
out a better thing. So you've got to figure out where all the art galleries are. You've got to go to all the openings. You've got to get the latest magazines and get a subscription to them, or go to the library and read them, or whatever. And it's that same old thing. Study research. It's not study in necessarily like a university. This is study that you have to generate on your own.
Yeah.
There's no lecturer that'll tell you.
Yeah. And can anyone do it, or are some people just naturally terrible at it, no matter what they do?
Well, I can't imagine for the life of me that anyone would even want to go there if they didn't have sort of artistic ability.
Yeah.
To be honest, why would you?
Yeah.
And when I say that, I don't mean necessarily being able to do lovely drawings of,
Radishes
ponies or anything, with every hair in place. There were guys in my class at high school. This is the funny thing about being the only freak. There are a couple of guys in my class who could draw anything from me. They just you'd say, hey, we had this Maori guy, Alex. We'd say, Alex, draw us a picture of an Eskimo wrestling a polar bear, or just make things up. And he'd go, you just draw it. And I'd go, God, how do you do that? But you see, he never ever showed any interest in art.
Okay. He was just good at.
And I think that's so weird, you know what I mean? You'd assume.
So you get have that passion and that love.
Yeah,
for it.
yeah. You do. It's something. And so what an artist is doing, it's expressing themselves through that particular medium, and a dancer is expressing themselves through that particular medium. And it's all you have a point of view that you want to share, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. You kind of somehow dug in deep enough to realise that you do have something to say that you're not hearing.
Yeah.
And so you articulate this message through writing a book or doing a dance or painting a painting, or that's what you're publishing.
Yeah.
Your opinion. You're publishing your opinion. And there's a million ways of doing that. They don't have to be a painting.
Yeah.
It could be a comic. It could be, writing a book's interesting. I'm working on a new one at the moment.
Oh, great.
I love the act of writing. Creating a sort of an image and an idea.
Yeah, what do you reckon is the most misunderstood thing about art?
Oh, that it's easy.
Okay.
Yeah. That it's, and of course a lot of contemporary artists do make it. You know that thing that people go and say, "Oh, my 3-year-old can do that."
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean.
Okay.
And everyone, I'll just go home and whip up an abstract. And you see it on those TV shows, the home decoration show, where they get a bit of
get a couple of paintbrushes.
Yeah, and away they go. You get a silhouette of a koru and go with a roller on it, and they hang it on the wall, and there's their art. And they go, "Way, let's all do it."
Yeah.
But of course it's not even art.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's just stuff.
Yeah.
And
can you tell a good bit from a bad bit? Like, do you see bits and you were just like, "That is not art. That's just."
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I got X-ray eyes. I mean, nothing gets past me really. I can say that.
Yeah.
With all confidence, because that's one thing that I'm really good at.
Okay, and what for you is
I'm a graphic detective. That's what I call myself.
Yeah. And what for you is like you'll wear this like artistic habits? Is there something you do to like get into the mode or things like that?
I just get these out, or you open an art book, open a Picasso book or whatever, or start going through, and then you just drift into the zone. You just have to. This is a lot. I discovered that I've had a couple of writer's blocks.
Okay.
The equivalent, artistic equivalent.
Yeah.
And the way to go into it is just to pick up a book.
Yeah.
Don't even bother with your Google and that, because then you get distracted with all this other stuff that's in them. Just get an art book, go to the library again, and just get into it. And you'll
just drift away into that kind of work.
It'll just start working. It's unbelievable.
Okay, and who's your favourite yet to be discovered artist of late?
Oh, my favourite yet to be discovered artist. I don't think I've seen any new young hotshots around it. I don't hang out on the scene like I used to.
Is it it's a profession, or if you want to call it that, is it something that's like more people doing it or less people? Have you noticed?
Oh, there's more people doing it.
Okay.
But there's
less people doing it well.
No, the same number,
Okay.
same percentage.
Okay.
It's kind of fabulous in a way, because I think it raises the bar. You know that old story: the broader the base, the higher the tip of the pyramid. I think it gives rise to sort of a greater degree of professionalism. Okay. But the percentage of actual talent that comes out that contributes to this conversation that I keep referring to is kind of the same.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that never used to exist, that now there's a huge infrastructure that needs constant feeding with people that have graduated that know about art, curators and writers, and oh my God, it's huge, you know what I mean? Yeah. Which is great, because it informs, it makes even the bad art a bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And just before we finish off, what would the 16-year-old boy you were think of the man you've become today?
Oh, he'd be, I know exactly what he'd think, because I did a painting when I was a 16-year-old boy of an artist in a studio, and it was my dream image, and it looked exactly like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, is there a bit of advice you'd give him?
No, I wouldn't want to put him off with anything, because he obviously figured it out anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just before we finish off, what's something that you believe to be true that not many people agree with you on?
Oh, gosh, that's a funny one. There's quite a few things that I take issue with. The latest one is that the caveman drew those bison with multiple legs because the flickering of the greasy candle gave the impression of the beast was actually running.
Okay.
And that's the most fanciful bit of bullshit I've ever heard.
Okay, awesome. So to finish off, can you look down this camera here and tell us, what are your wise words for the people of New Zealand?
What are my wise words?
Yeah, so your summary bit of anything you want to say to everyone.
Oh, God, I keep writing them down all the time when I'm going. I think as corny as it sounds, you have to find out who you are and learn to trust it. and boy oh boy, how you do that is another conversation. But at the end of the day, all you've got is you. No one else can do it for you.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
I know that they all say that, but it's kind of, it's the bottom line. Really.